Hey everyone. So in today's video, I want to respond to a particular clip from an Intelligence Square debate featuring Ilan Pape, a well-known Israeli historian and left-wing academic, some say revisionist historian. In this clip, Pape gives what sounds like a historical explanation of anti-Semitism, claiming it's rooted solely in Christian civilization. And while it's partly true, what he leaves out is just as important, if not more so, because of the relevancy. This is the sort of selective framing that is exactly how you would want to rewrite history to fit a political agenda. So let's take a listen to what he says, and then I'll break down why it's misleading and why it matters.
Is being put in front of you tonight is both outrageous and ridiculous. If only because it makes every Palestinian in the world, almost everyone who lives in the Arab and Muslim world, anyone who regards themselves as liberal or on the left, it turns all these people into anti-Semites.
Well, okay, let's just stop there for a second. So the reality is actually that he's technically right, and it's also technically true. The vast majority of the Arab and Muslim world are, in fact, anti-Semitic. We have a lot of data showing this. Pew poll research, ADL Global 100 survey, for example. Those are two studies. I'll link them in the video. It's the most comprehensive study of anti-Semitic attitudes ever conducted, and it shows really how bad the problem is and still is across the Arab and Muslim world. So across the Middle East and North Africa, 74% of adults agreed with the majority of 11 anti-Semitic stereotypes. So for example, 81% in Jordan and 92% in Iraq believe that Jews have too much power in international finance. Huge majorities also agree that the Jews control global media and global government. In Yemen, Algeria, and Egypt, many believe the Holocaust is exaggerated or a hoax even. So these aren't just fringe conspiracy theories in these regions. They're widely accepted norms. They're taught in schools, they're broadcast in the media, and they're repeated in religious sermons. So, no, this isn't just about Israel. This is a deep rooted anti Semitism that predates Zionism, predates the modern Israeli Arab conflict, and continues to this day. So, that's something that should be noted.
Whereas quite a few people who regard themselves as Zionists, like the Christian Zionists, are actually anti-Semites themselves. But it is important to challenge it because it was used with some effect to stifle the debate on Palestine in the West. This allegation is used in order to prevent the promotion for positions of power of politicians known for the long-term support for Palestine. By defaming these politicians as anti-Semitic, official Israel and its supporters worldwide hope to bring them down, as in the case of Jeremy Corbyn, or delegitimize them, as in the case of Ilhan Omar in the American Congress. So this is a good opportunity and an appropriate venue to say loud and clear that if you are against Zionism, or if you define yourself as I do and anti-Zionist, you are not anti-Semite, or in my case, a self-hating Jew, which my doctors told me is an incurable disease, and I would have to live with for the rest of my life. I will make 5 points, one long one and 4 or 5 short ones. Anti-Semitism is an old, ugly attitude that demonizes Jews because of who they are and led in the past to horrendous policies of discrimination and genocide. It still prevails today, and despite the passing of years, it's basically not changed much. Its origins are deeply rooted in the Christian faith and were adopted in more recent years by right-wing supremacists and some extreme Islamic groups.
Okay, I want to stop there because if you notice, he said it's fundamentally Christian and only exists in extreme Islamic groups, as if that's like the minority. And as I said in the beginning of this video, it's actually the vast majority of Arabs and Muslims. It's not anywhere close to the minority. So in any case, let's go back and break down what he's really saying, because he's trying to paint a picture that just it frames everything as if it's the West's fault, right? And that ignores all of the Islamic Judeophobia, we might call it, as I've heard it once referred to as before. But we have to understand that anti-Semitism and Judeophobia isn't just a modern thing in the Arab world. This is a historical problem that goes all the way back to the beginning of Islam. So here's the reality. In the early days of Islam, Jewish tribes like the Banu Qurayza were targeted. Okay, it's culminated in executions and enslavement of the Jewish tribe. This is like a Jewish tribe, right? So these events are documented in Islamic sources like the Ibn Ishaq, and that moment is still invoked today when you hear protesters chant at these, at protests, Khaybar, Khaybar al-Yahud, right? This is basically a call to repeat the 7th century battle where Muhammad's forces defeated the Jewish tribe of Khaybar. Okay, so this goes all the way back to the beginning, deeply, deeply embedded. Now, under Islamic empires, after that, Jews were always considered second-class citizens, known as dhimmis. They were forced to pay special taxes, barred from many professions, and they were publicly humiliated. In Yemen, Jews couldn't wear shoes, for example. In Persia, Iran, they were forbidden from riding horses, only donkeys. In Morocco, they were forced to wear specific type of clothing. Now, was it genocidal like Europe? Not really. At least, it was roughly the same until the 20th century, but never really got to genocidal levels. But that doesn't mean there was equality or harmony, either peaceful coexistence. It was segregated tolerance, conditional on Jewish silence and subservience. And it was also very violent, right? So there was many, many pogroms and many massacres in the Muslim world. Granada in 1066, when the Muslims controlled that part of the world. Fez in 1465. Baghdad in 1828. Palestine in the 1830s. Okay, these are all documented massacres against the Jews. There was also forced conversions in Persia and Yemen. And this all happened before Zionism. Okay, before Zionism. Now let's fast forward to the 20th century. Jewish communities in Iraq, Egypt, Libya, and Syria. Some over 2,000-year-old communities were persecuted, massacred, exiled. The Farhud pogrom in Baghdad was in 1941. Okay, almost a decade before the State of Israel was born. And it left hundreds of Jews dead and injured. So when people say, oh, all the anti-Semitism of today and post-1940, it's all because of Zionism. It's just historically inaccurate, and it's logically incredibly weak, right? But let's put all the history, that literally thousands of years of anti-Jewish persecution and massacres, let's put it to the side. If Jews were genuinely loved, respected, and seen as part of Arab societies, then why did their loyalty collapse so quick, right? Why did their neighbors, many of whom lived among them for generations, suddenly turn on the Jews? Most Mizrahi Jews, Jews of the Arab world, they weren't actually Zionists. They had no interest in moving to Israel. Their lives were rooted where they were. They even openly condemned Zionism, if at the very least to protect themselves, right? And even that, it didn't help. Their property was confiscated. They were fired from their jobs, arrested arbitrarily. They were terrorized. Governments didn't protect them. And the communities couldn't defend themselves. And the pressure just grew and grew and grew. And then eventually they just fled. They left. They left their entire lives, their entire fortunes, everything, and they left to Israel. So no, Zionism didn't cause the anti-Semitism in the Muslim world. It really just exposed it. And the hatred was always there, embedded in the theology, the culture, and the power dynamics. Zionism was just a convenient scapegoat, essentially waiting to happen. So this framing is highly selective, it's ideological, and it plays into the left-wing progressive ideological framework, right? The third world anti-Western coalition, what they're trying to build, where the West is always the villain and Muslims and people of color are always the victims. And in that narrative, anti-Semitism becomes a white person's problem, not the brown person, right? But real history isn't that simple. And if we want to confront all anti-Semitism, we have to be honest about it, even if it's uncomfortable. And it needs to be called out. This is what it comes down to. In any case, let me know what you think in the comments. Is Pape kind of ignoring history? Is this just selective exposure, or or do you think he's giving an authentic reading of history? So, in any case, like and subscribe if you want more breakdowns, debates like this one, and if you want the receipts, check out the video description for all the sources I used. And yeah, see you in the next one.